Hello indie game fans, on April 1st, the scheduled drop of Content Warning caught everyone by surprise since it was free to keep for the first 24 hours and got up to over 204,000 concurrent players, which put it in the top 10 of the most played games on Steam, right up there next to Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, PUBG, Helldivers 2 and Apex Legends. 6.2 million copies were claimed for free, and post-launch, that momentum has carried over to more than 1 million copies sold, which at $8 a pop, netted them a cool $5.6 million in 2 weeks. Bada bing, bada boom. Easy, right? Wrong. If you're a game developer, do not learn the wrong lessons from this release, so here's giving you the context. If you're planning on leveraging creators and media coverage, surprise releasing your game generally does not end well for indie game developers, since you need time to do marketing for your game, and people have to be aware of your game for it to get any form of coverage. Across the board, whether it be content creators or traditional games media, there's always someone put in charge of looking at the list of upcoming releases, whether it be by week or by month, to identify and pick out the games that would be of interest to their audience. Creators cover games around release since people look to them for first impressions and review type coverage before deciding on whether or not to purchase a game, so if your game releases out of nowhere, it is immediately out of this whole process. Sure, occasionally, games like Content Warning are big enough to be undeniable so that you get coverage post-launch, but for the average small indie game, you don't really get another swing at the ball. In all the discussion surrounding this game, a key missing piece is that this is not the developer's first rodeo at this kind of launch. Swedish developer Landfall Games has had a long history of releasing games on April 1st, so much so that they have claimed it to be Landfall Day, since April Fool's Day is in line with the spirit and vibes of their games, of wacky, not so serious titles like the wobbly battle simulator game Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. In fact, this tradition goes back to 2016 with the free release of
Super Truck,
which was
Super Hot
meets Cluster Truck, and then a DayZ parody in 2017, a PUBG parody in 2018 which became one of their most successful games, the 1.0 launch of Totally Accurate Battle Simulator in 2019, a paid DLC that added bugs to their game in 2020, releasing 4 games in one day in 2021, the free horse drifting battle royale game Nightfall in 2022, the release of 23 prototypes in the Landfall archives in 2023, and of course, Content Warning in 2024. So it is not a one-off, lol, so random thing, but rather a very intentional way of making and releasing games. Maybe you'll want to claim a day for yourself, whether it be your birthday, the day your studio was formed, or just a day that means something to you or your fans, like March 10th or May the 4th, although those are taken for now. The development of this game was also substantially de-risked, since it was the result of an internal game jam that took 5 people about 1 month to make, while the rest of the team was focused on their main announced project titled Haste Broken Worlds. Throwing Content Warning out there on April Fool's Day, in line with company tradition, was just a way of releasing a fun game for people to screw around with, and even if it did flop, it would not have been such a big deal since it only took 1 month to make. Compared to a solo developer who spent 4 years making a game, shadow dropping a game might seem exciting, but they cannot afford for it to fail.
Here comes the money!
Another reason why they have the luxury of releasing games like this is that Landfall is one of the most successful indie game developers of all time. Starting off with just 2 friends in high school in 2014, they have grown to about 20 people based on their website, which is not exactly a small indie team, but not exactly a AA or larger studio as well, and more importantly, they do have the financial muscle to stay alive even if the surprise launch fails. We can use the number of Steam reviews to estimate the total number of copies sold, with the latest as of recording being that Content Warning has sold 1 million copies with about 7,800 Steam reviews. Now, if you extrapolate that out to their other games, Cluster Truck has 12,000, which means 1.5 million units, Rounds has almost 22,000, so 2.8 million copies, Totally Accurate Battleground has 84,000, and was $5 for 1.5 years until it went free to play in 2020, but had additional monetization like a battle pass, and their biggest hit in Totally Accurate Battle Simulator has a whopping 114,000 reviews or 14.6 million copies if you use the same ratio, and that is only on Steam and not counting console launches. Needless to say, this is one of the most well-off indie developers, so again, if the surprise release strategy flopped, I believe this team would still be okay. And if this wasn't enough, hear it straight from the horse's mouth, since the developers, in an interview with Stealth Optional, said that we're not sure shadow dropping something for free this way works for everyone, and we've had varying success with it throughout the years. But they do encourage indie developers to release their games in interesting ways. Before we get into lessons to learn from this, if you're struggling with marketing your indie game, get some free resources to help, link in the description below. The game being free to keep for the first 24 hours is kind of a genius move for multiplayer focused titles, since you need a critical mass of players, and this is one way of going about it, but do note that it was designed for groups of 2 to 4 players rather than the 100-person battle royale trend a few years ago. But they were able to hijack the conversation and spread through word of mouth of people telling their friends to claim the game so that they could play together. Like their previous games in Totally Accurate Battlegrounds and Nightfall, which followed PUBG and the Battle Royale trend, Content Warning was a spin on the Lethal Company formula, one of the most popular games of 2023, but it's different enough to be fresh and interesting. Yes, there are still monsters lurking in the dark, but rather than getting scrapped, you are screwing around with your friends, trying to capture footage to go viral for views, likes, and ad revenue. It's funny how a game riding the wave of influencer culture and the extent to which people go to in an attempt to go viral has itself gone viral, with a metric ton of content releasing in the hours after its surprise release, so it's meta in terms of pure concept. Also helping is that your video that you upload to the in-game SpookTube can be exported and saved as a video to your PC desktop, so you can literally take the same clip and upload it to social media, which just helped in the virality of the game and how easily it could be shared. Sure, concurrent players have since fallen to about 20k, which has knocked it out of the top 10, but it is still very impressive numbers for a game made in 1 month, with bug fixes, patches, and maybe even additional content to come, since it did sell 1 million copies after all. So, like Lethal Company, expect to see this game resurface every now and then as it gets updated. So yeah, don't take the wrong lessons from the success of this game, and if you love spooky titles, watch this video for 30 upcoming indie games.